10 minutes left to actually debate the topic. That is very problematic for me because I think we should be electing candidates based on the way that they think and based on the way that we see them able to problem solve rather than what their initial stance is on everything.
And we're back.
All right, so this morning I was sitting here with this book, writing some notes because I had a lot of thoughts in my brain. And I was thinking about the presidential debates because I had just watched the vice presidential debate the night before, had a lot of it on my mind, and came up with these bars. How do we call ourselves the United States if the debates that our leaders have never reach a united state? Eh? Debate, state, United State.
I'm just not gonna say anything about that. I'm gonna let his words speak for themselves. That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, but I said that because the way that they're set up is that there'll be like usually a 90-minute segment.
Yep.
And it's split up into 10 or 15-minute blocks, each of them with one issue that's being covered. First, the issue gets, like, a question about the issue gets asked by the moderator.
Mm-hmm.
And then each candidate is given 2 minutes to first respond.
Yep.
2 minutes to respond about, like, one of the biggest problems that we have.
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes. And then after that, so they've both gone 2 and usually add another like 10, 15, 30 seconds on either side. 5 minutes gone. Now they have either 5, if it's a 10-minute section, or 10 minutes left to actually debate the topic. That is very problematic for me because I think we should be electing candidates based on the way that they think and based on the way that we see them able to problem solve rather than what their initial stance is on everything. Like, I want a president who, when new issues are coming up, things that we've never faced before, whatever it is, are going to be the best person for the job to be doing the thinking at that level.
Yeah. So you're saying, like, so they need to, like, be able to really think on their feet and, like, be able to intake information and, like, really not just spit out facts.
Not just, like, the thinking on their feet thing, but also the way that they think through a problem in general. Because if we were able to see more of why they thought what they think, more of why their opinion is what it is, then we would actually understand why they got there and how they got there. And it is so much more important that they have a good system of getting there than what it is that they got to.
And that's if you have 2 minutes, you can only describe what you got to.
Exactly.
You know,
you have no chance to say anything else. And that leads me to, like, the other thing with these debates is that these questions are framed in a way so that there's either, like, a yes or a no answer. You're on this side or you're on that side. It will be, let's say, if you're pro-choice or pro-life. And the question is stated in that way. So you can either say in those 2 minutes, I'm pro-life or pro-choice. And that's all you can say. And then after that, the thing that happens is that one person will say one thing for 2 minutes. Then the other person will say the exact opposite thing for 2 minutes. Neither of them will address the truths or not truths in the other person's stuff. They'll always just say, no, that's not true, or they got it all wrong, especially when it's talking about more nuanced subjects or more nuanced situations. Like if they're talking about something that President Trump did, then Pence would say specifically the good reason why he did that, and Harris would say specifically the bad reason why he did that. And all that allows is that truth is black and white. And you either have to be on one side or the other, when in actuality, since neither of them told you what the roots are for their truth, you only get to know, like, black or white, but really it could be one of them is right. It could be the other one's right. It could be both of them are partially right. It could be neither of them are right.
Yeah. I think that gets me thinking about, of course, like the two-party system, and not just that we have just two parties that are really like significant in the country, but also that those two parties seem like exact opposites. Like that's where the black and white comes in. It's like either you're Republican and you feel this way, or you're Democrat and you feel this way, and there's just no interlap. But if you were to talk to people, like actually talk to them, you'd most likely find way more similarities. But because of these like labels that we feel like we have to put on each other, like it really, really like. So this is a thing that I've talked to Eli about that I really like about having a lot of friends who are like into philosophy, because philosophers, I feel like, don't assume what your values are. I think that's a really cool thing. People who like question who you are and what you believe in, and don't ask as much for like labels. And so they'll ask you, "Oh, how do you feel about this?" Because they're interested, because philosophers are just like naturally curious people. And then they ask like, "Oh, well, why? Like, why do you feel that way?" Whereas like so many other people are just looking for "Oh, are you a super far left liberal? Oh, sorry, I can't talk to you." Like,
or vice versa.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, I like what you were saying about like the just not having the proper amount of time to like deal with these massive topics. And a lot of them are also so problem based, like you were saying, like dealing with the biggest problems. Like we're not seeing like solutions. There's no like hope in the debates. That's the biggest thing for me. Like I feel like at this point I know who I'm voting for, so I haven't watched either of the debates because I knew that I would not get a lot out of them. But everyone who I was in contact with who like mentioned the debates to me were like so like anxious, frustrated, angry, like I could just like feel it in them, like, oh, like that awful feeling.
Because it's just a polarization party.
Like did anyone who watched the debates, like, did that nourish you in any way? Did that make you think any differently about a topic, or like expand your range of knowledge about how our country works? Because there's so much that I don't know about how our country works that I'm just not going to get from a debate.
But the people in the debate are our leaders.
Yeah.
And they should be educating everyone else about how this country runs and how we could run it better. Yeah, it seems like the whole goal of the debate, just like the scoring points for potential votes, is just, I mean, it's just a symptom of this disease, of the fact that we're not actually looking at the roots of issues. Oh, yeah.
And like we're not being, like I said earlier, there's no hope in these debates. Like we're not thinking like solutions based. We're thinking like you were mentioning earlier, like we've been talking about fear a lot, and it feels like a lot of what politics is these days is just based in fear. And like that is only going to lead us further down this sort of dark path we're going down as a country. And the way out of that is through like acceptance, is through like love, and it's not through all this like clashing.
Yeah. So to sum this up a bit, what would you do to the debates? How would you change them?
That's a tough question. I'd like to see more stuff with like real voters. Like I like town halls. Like I like town halls where like people come up and like ask questions. Yeah. And the like candidates get to answer them. Though that like still like no matter what questions you're asking, if you put these two same candidates up on the stage, like whatever, Trump or Biden, Harris or Pence, you're still going to get these massively polarizing answers from them.
Yeah, I had two ideas when it came to this. Like, what if you started the debate or each question from the place of agreement? What if you had to first go all the way down to a root of things that you agreed on and then worked your way up?
I like that. I like that. Because I feel like an important thing is, which I think about, but I've heard a decent amount, is that like one of the biggest issues in the country we have right now is we don't even like agree on some of the like root facts. So we're trying to like talk about how we want to implement things when we don't even agree on the facts going on underneath. So we need to like deal with that. Like those are some questions that we need to be asking ourselves, is like what is our root value system as people? And like we can't go further than that. We can't talk about these like surface level things if we don't agree on the sort of like root of
the
it all,
foundation.
The foundation, the facts. So
foundation
we
shaky.
need to be asking more questions about that with our candidates, I feel like.
Yeah. The other thing I thought was, what if these leaders had to do like half an hour long segments or something where they explained their whole reasoning for their stance, and then the other person had to respond to their 30-minute thing. And for that time, you could only respond, and you aren't pushing your own... I mean, obviously, you're going to push your own ideas, but you need to push it in response to them. Because in these debates, it's a lot of, ignore that, I'm going to say my words because I only have 5 minutes to say my words.
Exactly. And like, you know, like an initial response that I was imagining that people could say about that is like, oh, well, that just like takes way too much time. But from my perspective, like, these politicians spend like hundreds of hours just going across the country and saying the same thing over and over and over. Like in the primary cycles, I was like watching a decent amount of, and I was like actually going to like political rallies and things like that. And like, I'd see the same candidates a few times. I'd hear the same thing from them every time.
Yeah.
So like, why don't we like put these candidates in more situations where they're not just working through the same cycle in their head of like what they know they need to say, because then that becomes muscle memory, and then they're not thinking critically, which is like what you were saying we need in leaders. Like, why don't we put them through more like trials like that, like actual like give you 30 minutes to talk about this topic.
Also off of the root of that little tangent was you saying like, oh, but that will take too much time. But also, what is more important than having all the American people on the same page? Like, what should take priority over that? If, like, our priority should be that our leaders are super open with the people, and that this is actually a democracy where everyone is a part of it. But in order for everyone to be a part of it, everyone needs to be educated on it. And in order to be educated on it, we need to learn the roots.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I feel like it just seems more and more like our leaders are trying to separate us as people. Like, there is no real unifier. Like, I see very few people who seem like unifiers.
And isn't that the role of a leader?
That should be the role of a leader. And like, we hear about leaders of like the American past, like great presidents of our past who were able to like unify the country. Like, can anyone here like envision that happening right now? Like, any situation like that.
I
it's
pray
hard.
for it.
I
pray for it.
Yeah. Would be amazing. But then even if that person showed up, would they get any traction? Would they be polarizing enough to like get enough following from people who are super passionate?
Exactly.
I don't know.
That gets into a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, definitely.
But in general, I think this was a cool talk.
Yeah.
Got some nice thoughts out.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, what do you guys think? What are the biggest issues? What are the biggest solutions? Actually, let's talk solutions, because that's way cooler.
Cooler.
What would you guys do to change the debates to make them more engaging, more educational for everyone?
Unless you loved the debates. I know you didn't.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe. We love you and hope that you're having a lovely day, and hope that we make it through this election cycle
alive
and learning a lot more, and that we grow as people and as a united people.